A single mom waitress found a $0 tip and a terrifying note under the plate. Your son carries the mark. Keep him hidden. She thought it was a sick joke until she saw the same symbol burned into her 8-year-old skin. The pale stranger who left that note? He was the last vampire king, and he'd been waiting 500 years to protect her son. The fluorescent lights of Mel's diner buzzed like dying insects at 2:47 a.m. Mara wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her feet screaming inside worn sneakers that needed replacing 2 months ago. The tips tonight had been terrible, barely enough to cover Theo's school lunch money for the week. Table 7. Gary muttered from the kitchen window, not looking up from his phone. Mara hadn't heard the door chime. She turned, and her breath caught. The man sat perfectly still in the corner booth, hands folded on the table like he was posing for a portrait. His suit looked expensive but wrong, the cut too formal, the style from another era. Maybe the 1920s? His skin was so pale it almost glowed under the harsh lights, and his black hair was slicked back with mathematical precision. Good morning, Mara said, approaching with her notepad. Her voice sounded too loud in the empty diner. What can I get you? The man's eyes lifted to meet hers, and something cold slithered down her spine. His irises were so dark they looked black, and when he smiled, his lips barely moved. Coffee. Black. And whatever you recommend. His voice was soft, almost musical, with an accent she couldn't place. European, maybe? But old. Like he'd learned English from someone who'd been dead for a century. Pancakes are good. Eggs and bacon, if you want something filling. Pancakes will suffice. Mara scribbled the order and walked back to the kitchen, glancing over her shoulder. The man hadn't moved, hadn't pulled out a phone, hadn't looked around. He just sat there, staring at the spot where she'd been standing. Weird one tonight? Gary asked, cracking eggs onto the griddle. You have no idea. When she brought the food out, the man was reading a newspaper. Not scrolling through news on a phone. An actual newspaper. The masthead read the Chronicle, but Mara had never heard of it. The date at the top said December 4th, but the paper looked yellowed, old. Here you go. She set the plate down carefully. Anything else?
No.
Thank you. He folded the newspaper with precise movements and began cutting his pancakes into perfect squares. Each movement was deliberate, controlled. He ate without pleasure, like he was fulfilling an obligation rather than satisfying hunger. Mara retreated behind the counter, pretending to refill sugar dispensers while watching him from the corner of her eye. He finished every bite, drank his coffee in 3 measured sips, and then stood abruptly. He walked past her without a word, pushed open the door, and disappeared into the November darkness. Hey! Mara called out, but he was already gone. He didn't pay. She rushed to table 7, ready to find an empty table and another loss she'd have to cover from her own pocket. But there was cash on the table, a crisp $50 bill sitting beside the plate. For a $12 meal. Relief washed over her. Maybe the night wasn't a total loss after all. Then she saw the tip line on the receipt he'd left, $000. Asshole, she muttered, pocketing the 50. Rich people were always like this. Paid the bill but couldn't be bothered to tip the person who served them. She grabbed the plate, ready to toss it in the dish bin, when something made her stop. There was a mark on the ceramic, just under where the pancakes had been. Not a stain. Something else. Mara lifted the plate, and her blood went cold. A note, written in deep red ink that looked disturbingly like dried blood, was stuck to the bottom. Your son carries the mark. Keep him hidden. Below the words was a symbol, a circle with intricate geometric patterns inside, like a compass rose mixed with ancient runes. The ink seemed to shimmer under the fluorescent lights. Mara's hands trembled. The plate slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor.
Jesus, Mara.
Gary shouted from the kitchen. What happened? She couldn't answer. Her mind was racing. Your son carries the mark. How did this stranger know she had a son? How did he know about Theo at all? She'd never mentioned him, never brought him to work. She was always so careful about keeping her personal life separate. She grabbed the note, shoving it into her apron pocket, and bent down to clean up the broken plate. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely pick up the pieces. "You okay?" Gary appeared beside her with a broom. "You look like you've seen a ghost."
Ivy fine, Mara lid.
"Just tired." She finished her shift in a daze, watching the door, expecting the pale man to return.
But he never did.
At 6 a.m., when her replacement arrived, Mara practically ran to her car, a rusted Honda Civic that coughed and sputtered before starting. The drive home took 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. Every shadow on the street looked like a person watching. Every car behind her felt like it was following too closely. She parked in front of her apartment building, a sagging 3-story complex with peeling paint and a broken security gate. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Mara took the stairs 2 at a time, unlocked her door, and locked it again behind her. The apartment was quiet. Mrs. Chun, the elderly neighbor who watched Theo overnight, was asleep on the couch, her reading glasses perched on her nose. "Mrs. Chun," Mara whispered, gently shaking her shoulder. "I'm home." The old woman startled awake.
Oh.
"Mara, good." Theo was perfect. Fed him dinner, helped with homework. "He's sleeping now." "Thank you." Mara pressed $20 into Mrs. Chen's hand, money she couldn't afford to spare but always did anyway. "Same time tomorrow?" "Of course, dear." After Mrs. Chen left, Mara stood in the doorway of Theo's small bedroom. Her son was curled up under his superhero blanket, breathing softly, his dark hair falling across his forehead. He looked so small, so fragile. "Your son carries the mark." "What mark? What did it mean?" Mara pulled the note from her pocket and stared at the symbol again. In the morning light streaming through the window, the red ink looked even more like blood. She walked to Theo's bedside and gently pulled back his blanket, checking his arms, his legs, his back. Nothing.
No marks. No bruises.
Nothing out of the ordinary. Relief flooded through her. Maybe it was just a sick joke. Maybe the man was insane or high or... Then she saw it. On Theo's left shoulder blade, barely visible beneath his pajama shirt, was a faint mark. The same symbol from the note. It looked like it had been burned into his skin, the edges raised and slightly red. Mara's legs gave out. She sank to the floor beside the bed, staring at the mark in horror. It hadn't been there yesterday. She would have noticed. She gave Theo a bath every night. She would have seen it. But there it was. Unmistakable.
Impossible.
And somewhere in the darkness outside, someone or something was watching. Mara didn't sleep. She sat on the floor beside Theo's bed, watching his chest rise and fall, studying the mark on his shoulder until her eyes burned. As dawn broke fully, painting golden stripes across the worn carpet, she finally stood and stumbled to the kitchen.
Coffee.
She needed coffee. Her hands shook as she filled the pot, water splashing over the sides. The note lay on the counter where she'd left it, the red ink seeming darker in daylight. Keep him hidden. Hidden from what? From whom?
Mom.
Mara spun around. Theo stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, his Spider-Man pajamas wrinkled from sleep. He looked so normal. So beautifully, perfectly normal. "Hey, baby," she forced a smile, shoving the note into her pocket. "You're up early." "I heard you moving around," he yawned, scratching absently at his left shoulder. "Are we having pancakes?" The word pancakes made Mara's stomach turn. "How about cereal today?" Theo shrugged and climbed onto one of the mismatched kitchen chairs. Mara poured him a bowl of off-brand cornflakes, her mind racing. She needed to see the mark again. In proper light. To confirm she hadn't imagined it. "Theo, honey, did you hurt yourself yesterday? At school, maybe?" "Nope," he crunched his cereal loudly. "Your shoulder. Does it hurt at all?" He paused, spoon halfway to his mouth. "It feels weird." Mara's blood froze. "Weird how?" "I don't know."
Cold?
"Like when you hold ice cream too long," he shrugged again, wincing slightly. "It's not bad or anything." "Can I see it?" Theo gave her a confused look, but pulled down the collar of his pajama top. The mark was clearer now, more defined than it had been an hour ago. The geometric patterns seemed to pulse under his skin, the edges no longer red but a disturbing silver white, like frost. Mara touched it gently. Theo jerked away.
Ow.
Mom, that hurt. I barely touched you. It's really cold now. Theo's eyes were wide, frightened. Mom, what's wrong with me? Nothing, baby. Nothing's wrong. Mara pulled him into a hug, feeling him tremble against her. Maybe it's just a rash. We'll put some cream on it, okay? You'll be fine. But she didn't believe her own words. And from the way Theo clung to her, neither did he. An hour later, she walked him to Pinewood Elementary, a 15-minute journey they made every morning. Usually Theo chattered about video games or complained about homework. Today, he was silent, his hand gripping hers tightly. Mara kept glancing over her shoulder. The streets were busy with morning traffic, parents rushing to drop off kids, people hurrying to work. Everything looked normal. But that note had changed everything. Now every stranger's face seemed suspicious. Every car that passed felt like a threat. They were 2 blocks from school when she noticed it. A black sedan, windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of oil, rolling slowly along the street behind them. Too slowly, matching their pace exactly. Mara's grip on Theo's hand tightened. Come on, baby. Let's walk faster. Mom, you're hurting my hand. Just walk. They sped up. The car sped up. Mara's heart hammered against her ribs. She glanced back again and saw movement behind the driver's window. A pale shape. A face pressed against the glass, watching them. Run, she whispered. Run. They bolted. Theo's backpack bounced against his shoulders as Mara dragged him across the street, dodging between cars. Horns blared. Someone shouted. The black sedan accelerated, cutting across traffic to follow them. Mara spotted a busy coffee shop ahead, packed with morning customers. She yanked Theo inside, the bell above the door chiming cheerfully. They pushed through the crowd to the back, Mara's breath coming in ragged gasps. Mom, what's happening? Theo's face was pale, tears streaming down his cheeks.
Sure.
It's okay. We're okay. She peered through the window, searching for the black sedan. It was parked across the street, waiting. She could see the driver now, a figure so pale they almost glowed, dressed in dark clothes. They weren't moving, just sitting there, watching the coffee shop entrance. We're going out the back, Mara said. Stay close to me. They slipped through the coffee shop, past confused baristas, and out the employee exit into an alley. Mara ran, holding Theo's hand, her server's shoes slapping against wet pavement. They emerged 3 blocks away, and she finally allowed herself to look back. The sedan was gone. But she knew, with the certainty of a mother's instinct, that whoever was in that car hadn't given up. They were still out there, still hunting. She got Theo to school, signed him in at the office with shaking hands, and watched him disappear down the hallway to his classroom. The mark on his shoulder was hidden beneath his shirt, but Mara could still see it in her mind. Glowing. Pulsing.
Wrong.
At work that afternoon, she parked in the diner's lot and sat in her car for 10 minutes, staring at the entrance. Part of her wanted to drive away, to grab Theo and run as far as they could go. But run where? From what? She finally got out, locked her car, and turned toward the diner. The black sedan was parked directly across the street, and behind the wheel sat the pale man from last night, his dark eyes fixed on her unblinking. Mara's legs locked. The pale man didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at her through the windshield like she was a specimen under glass. The afternoon sun should have made him squint, should have reflected off the glass, but somehow his face remained perfectly visible, perfectly still. Her phone. She needed to call the police. Mara fumbled in her purse, fingers closing around her cracked iPhone. She looked down for just a second to unlock it, and when she looked up again, the sedan was empty. The driver's door hung open, but the man was gone. No. Mara spun in a circle, searching the street. A handful of pedestrians walked past, oblivious. A city bus rumbled by. Everything looked normal except for the abandoned car with its door hanging open like a mouth. You gonna stand there all day, or are you gonna work? Mara jumped. Gary stood in the diner's doorway, cigarette dangling from his lips. He looked annoyed, not terrified. He hadn't seen anything wrong.
Sadi.
I'm coming, she hurried inside, throwing one last glance at the empty sedan. Still no driver. Still no pale man. The lunch rush was mercifully busy, giving Mara no time to think. She took orders, delivered plates, refilled coffee cups, all while her mind screamed at her to leave, to run to Theo's school, to grab him and never stop running. But she needed this job, needed the money. And what would she even tell the school? That a strange man left her a cryptic note? That her son had a mysterious mark? That she was being followed by someone who could apparently vanish into thin air? They'd think she was crazy. Maybe call child services. At 2:45 p.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But what if it was the school? Hello. Silence. Then breathing. Slow, measured, like someone savoring each inhale. Who is this? Mara demanded, ducking into the supply closet. You didn't keep him hidden. The voice was soft, female, with the same old-world accent as the pale man. We can smell the mark from across the city. It's awakening faster than expected. What do you want? Who are you? The question isn't who we are. It's who will reach your son first, us or the others. They're already at his school. The line went dead. Mara's hands went numb. The phone clattered to the floor. She snatched it up, hands shaking so badly she could barely grip it, and called Pinewood Elementary. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. Pinewood Elementary. How may I? This is Mara Collins, Theo Collins' mother. I need to know if he's okay. Right now. Ma'am, I'll need to transfer you to.
Now.
Is my son okay? A pause. Muffled voices in the background. Then, ma'am, please hold. The seconds stretched into eternities. Mara pressed her forehead against the cool wall, trying to breathe. The supply closet smelled like bleach and desperation. Miss Collins. A different voice now. Principal Vance. His tone made her stomach drop. We need you to come to the school immediately. What happened? Is Theo hurt?
He's fine.
He's safe. But there was an incident. Please come now. Mara didn't remember leaving the diner. Didn't remember Gary shouting after her. Didn't remember the drive. Only the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears as she ran red lights and stop signs. The school parking lot was filled with police cars. 2 officers stood at the entrance, checking IDs. Mara shoved her driver's license at them, barely coherent.
Theo Collins.
I'm his mother. Where is he? They let her through. Inside, the hallway was chaos. Teachers herding confused students into classrooms, parents demanding answers, a police officer talking urgently into his radio. Principal Vance intercepted her. Miss Collins, please come with me. He led her to his office where Theo sat on a chair, looking small and scared. Mara dropped to her knees and pulled him into her arms. Are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? I'm okay, Mom. His voice was tiny. But something weird happened. A man tried to enter the building claiming to be Theo's guardian. Principal Vance explained, his face grave. He had no ID and wasn't on our approved pickup list. When we refused him entry, he became aggressive. Tried to force his way past security. Where is he now?
Gone.
He fled when we called the police. But, Miss Collins, there's something else. Vance pulled out his phone, showing her security camera footage. We need to know if you recognize this person. The video was grainy, black, and white. It showed the school's front entrance, the timestamp reading 1:23 p.m. A figure approached the door, tall, dressed in dark clothes. But where their face should have been, there was only a blur, a distortion like someone had smeared Vaseline on the lens. The camera malfunctioned, Vance said. But only when filming this individual. Every other frame is crystal clear. Mara's blood turned to ice. The figure's movements were wrong. Too smooth, too fast and human. The officers want to ask you some questions. Vance continued. Do you know who might want to harm Theo? Is there anyone, an ex-partner, a custody dispute?
No.
Nothing like that. Mara's voice came from somewhere far away. Can I take him home? The police would prefer. Can I take my son home? Vance hesitated, then nodded. We'll be in touch. Mara grabbed Theo's backpack and let him out, moving quickly through the crowded hallways. She kept expecting someone to stop them, to ask more questions, but no one did. Outside, the afternoon sun was too bright, the world too normal. Mara unlocked her car and buckled Theo into the back seat, her hands still trembling. As she walked around to the driver's side, she saw it. The black sedan, parked 3 spaces away. And leaning against it, arms crossed, was the pale man from the diner, watching her with those bottomless dark eyes. This time he smiled. Mara froze, keys dangling from her hand. Every instinct screamed at her to get in the car and drive, but her legs wouldn't move. The pale man pushed off from the sedan with fluid grace, and she noticed something she'd missed before. No one else in the parking lot seemed to see him. A mother walked past, chatting on her phone, passing within inches of him without a glance. 2 police officers stood by the school entrance, surveying the lot, their eyes sliding right over him as if he didn't exist. Get away from us, Mara managed, her voice barely a whisper. The man raised his hands in a placating gesture. I mean you no harm. If I did, you would already be dead. His accent was thicker now, each word carefully pronounced. We need to talk. Privately. I'm calling the police. They cannot help you. They cannot even see me unless I wish it, he gestured to the officers. Watch. One of the cops turned, looking directly at them, or rather, directly through the pale man to scan the parking lot beyond. His gaze passed over them without the slightest flicker of recognition. How? Mara's grip tightened on her keys until they bit into her palm. Your son is in danger. Real danger. The one who came to this school today was not here to talk. The man took a step closer and Mara instinctively moved toward her car door. Others saw the mark. They will come for the child. And next time, I may not arrive in time to prevent it. Mom? Theo's voice came muffled through the car window. His small face pressed against the glass, eyes wide. Who are you talking to? The pale man's expression shifted, something almost like sadness crossing his features. The boy can see me. Of course he can. The mark grants him sight beyond the veil. I don't know what you're talking about. Mara opened her door, ready to jump inside. Stay away from my son.
Mel's diner.
Tonight. Midnight. The man's dark eyes bore into hers. Come alone, or don't come at all. But know this. Hiding will not save him. Running will not save him. Only the truth can do that now. Why should I trust you? Because I left you a warning when I could have simply taken the boy myself. He stepped back, melting into the shadow of a nearby SUV. You have until midnight to decide. After that, I cannot protect you from what comes next. Wait. Mara lunged forward, but he was gone. Completely gone. She spun around, searching behind cars, between vehicles. Nothing. The parking lot was full of ordinary people living ordinary lives, none of them aware that something impossible had just happened. Mom, you're scaring me, Theo's voice cracked. Mara got into the car, locked the doors, and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Who was that man? Theo asked from the back seat. I don't know, baby. He felt cold. Like my shoulder. Theo touched the mark through his shirt. Mom, what's happening to me? Mara looked at her son in the rearview mirror, his 8-year-old face trying so hard to be brave, his eyes bright with unshed tears. She wanted to tell him everything would be okay, that she'd protect him, that this was all just a bad dream. But mothers who lied to their children got them killed. I don't know yet, she said honestly. But I'm going to find out. The drive home took 15 minutes, but Mara checked the mirrors every few seconds, watching for the black sedan. It never appeared. Somehow that was worse than being followed. At home, she triple-checked the locks, wedged a chair under the doorknob, and closed all the curtains. Theo sat on the couch, unusually quiet, his hand constantly drifting to his shoulder. Does it hurt? Mara asked, sitting beside him. Not hurt, but it's getting colder. And sometimes he hesitated. Sometimes I see things. What kind of things? Shadows. But they move wrong. They move when there's no one there to make them. His voice dropped to a whisper. Are they real, Mom? Mara pulled him close, feeling how cold his skin was. Too cold. I think so, baby. I think they might be. They ordered pizza for dinner. Mara couldn't stomach cooking, and she let Theo watch cartoons even though it was a school night. Normal things.
Safe things.
She tried calling the number that had warned her earlier, but it went straight to a disconnected message. At 9 p.m., she put Theo to bed, leaving his lamp on and the door open. She sat in the hallway outside his room, watching him finally drift to sleep, the mark on his shoulder visible above his blanket. It had spread. The silver-white lines now traced down his arm like frost on a window, delicate and terrifying. 11:30 p.m. Mara stood in her kitchen, staring at her car keys on the counter. Mrs. Chun had agreed to come stay with Theo on short notice, bless her. The old woman was already asleep on the couch, her gentle snoring filling the apartment with something resembling normalcy. Midnight at Mel's diner. She could go, could demand answers, could finally understand what was happening to her son. Or she could grab Theo right now and run. Drive until morning, then drive some more. Change their names. Disappear. But the pale man's words echoed in her mind. Hiding will not save him. Running will not save him. Mara picked up the keys. The diner was nearly empty when she arrived at 11:55 p.m. A different waitress worked the late shift, giving Mara a curious look as she entered. Gary wasn't in the kitchen, probably his night off. She slid into the same booth where the pale man had sat 2 nights ago. The same booth where this nightmare had started. At exactly midnight, the temperature dropped. Mara's breath came out in a white puff despite the diner's heating. The fluorescent lights flickered, and the pale man materialized in the seat across from her, as if he'd been sitting there all along. You came, he said softly. Good. That means you want your son to live. The waitress walked past their booth without glancing at them. The cook in the kitchen continued flipping burgers. To everyone else in the diner, Mara sat alone, talking to empty air. Tell me everything, Mara demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. Tell me what my son is. Tell me what you are. Tell me why people are trying to take him. The pale man folded his hands on the table, and in the harsh diner lighting, Mara finally noticed something she'd missed before. He cast no reflection in the window behind him. My name, he said, is Lucian, and I am the last of the vampire kings. Mara laughed. She couldn't help it, a sharp, hysterical sound that made the waitress glance over nervously. Vampires. You're telling me vampires are real? Lower your voice, Lucian said calmly. The humans cannot see me, but they can see you. They already think you're disturbed. I am disturbed. My son has some kind of mark burned into his skin. People are chasing us, and now you're sitting here telling me you're a— She couldn't even say it. A vampire. Yes, Lucian's expression didn't change. Though not the creatures from your movies. We don't fear crosses or garlic. Sunlight weakens us, but doesn't destroy us. And we most certainly do not sparkle. This is insane. Your son bears the royal blood mark. It appears once every 5 centuries, always on a human child. It signals the awakening of a new bloodline, a bridge between human and vampire. Legends say the marked child can restore balance between our worlds, or destroy everything. Lucian leaned forward. Many want to control that power. Others want to eliminate it before it manifests fully. Theo is 8 years old. He likes dinosaurs and video games. He's not some prophecy. He wasn't. But 3 nights ago, something triggered the mark's appearance. An alignment of old magic, perhaps. A cosmic event. The reason doesn't matter now. What matters is that every vampire and vampire hunter on this continent can sense it. They're coming, Mara. For your son. The temperature dropped further. Frost formed on the inside of the windows. I made a blood oath 500 years ago, Lucien continued, his voice heavy with old sorrow. To protect any child who bears this mark. I have waited centuries. Theo is the first. Then protect him. Mara's hand slammed on the table. Stop these people from hunting him. I am one vampire against many. And the hunters, they have weapons that can kill even me. His dark eyes met hers. I cannot be everywhere at once. You must be vigilant. Trust no one. Keep the boy close. For how long? Forever. Until the mark fully awakens. Then he will have the power to protect himself. When does that happen? Lucien's silence was answer enough. You don't know, Mara whispered. It varies. Weeks. Months. Perhaps years. He stood, the movement eerily fluid. I will watch over you as best I can. But ultimately, a mother's love is the strongest protection. Stay alert. He vanished before Mara could respond, leaving her alone in the booth with frost-covered windows and a head full of impossible truths. She didn't remember driving home, didn't remember paying Mrs. Chun or checking the locks. She only remembered climbing into Theo's bed, wrapping her arms around her son, and promising herself she wouldn't sleep. But exhaustion claimed her anyway. The phone woke her at 9:47 a.m. Miss Collins. Principal Vance's voice was tight with stress. We need you to come to the school. Immediately. Mara's blood froze. Is Theo?
He's fine.
He's safe. But please come now. She broke every speed limit. Her hands gripped the wheel, so tightly her knuckles turned white. Please let him be okay. Please, please, please. The school parking lot was chaos. Police cars. An ambulance. News vans. Parents clustered in frightened groups, some crying, others shouting into phones. Mara abandoned her car in a loading zone and ran. Ma'am, you can't. A police officer grabbed her arm. My son is in there.
Tell Colleen.
Name? A different officer checked a tablet. You're cleared. Come with me. He led her through the crowd, past yellow police tape, into the building. The hallway smelled wrong, something sharp and metallic that made her gag. Principal Vance met her outside his office, his face gray. Miss Collins, Theo is physically unharmed, but he's very shaken. We all are. What happened? Someone tried to take him. From his classroom. In front of his teacher and 23 other students. The world tilted. How? You should see the security footage. Vance led her into his office, where 2 detectives waited. Theo sat in the corner, a female officer beside him, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm room. Baby. Mara rushed to him, pulling him into her arms. He was ice cold, shivering violently. Are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? I got scared and it happened again, Theo whispered. The cold thing. I couldn't stop it. One of the detectives, a woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, cleared her throat. Miss Collins, I'm Detective Reeves. We need to ask you some questions, but first, you need to see this. She turned a laptop toward Mara. The screen showed Theo's classroom, rows of small desks, colorful posters on the walls, Mrs. Henderson at the whiteboard. Then the door opened. A man walked in. Tall, thin, dressed in a maintenance uniform. But his movements were wrong, too smooth, almost gliding. Mrs. Henderson turned, confused. The man's head snapped toward her with inhuman speed. She stumbled backward, mouth open in a scream that the video had no audio for. The children scattered. Some hid under desks. Others ran for the door. But the man, the thing, moved directly toward Theo with terrible purpose. Mara watched in horror as Theo backed against the wall, his small body rigid with fear. The figure reached for him with hands that seemed too long, fingers extending like claws. And then the image distorted. The camera couldn't capture what happened next. The footage showed only static, white noise, occasional flashes of movement. But when it cleared 15 seconds later, the intruder was gone. Theo remained pressed against the wall, alone, frost covering the floor around him in a perfect circle. The other children huddled in the far corner, staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. The man vanished, Detective Reeves said quietly. No one saw him leave. Every exit was monitored.
He simply
Disappeared. And the frost. Mara's voice cracked. We're still trying to understand that. Reeves leaned forward. Miss Collins, is there anything you need to tell us? Anything unusual about Theo? Any reason someone would target him, specifically? Mara looked at her son, at the fear in his eyes, at the way his hand clutched his shoulder, where the mark burned beneath his shirt. No, she lied. Nothing I can think of. Reeves didn't believe her. Mara could see it in the detective's eyes. But before she could press further, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Shouting. Running footsteps. A young officer burst through the door. Detective, there's another one. In the parking lot. He's asking for the boy by name. Mara grabbed Theo and pulled him behind her, a primal instinct overriding everything else. Nobody touches my son. Detective Reeves was already moving, hand on her weapon. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Wait. But the detectives were gone, Principal Vance following them, leaving Mara alone with Theo and the young officer who looked barely old enough to shave. Through the window, Mara could see the parking lot. Police officers formed a perimeter around a figure standing perfectly still in the center. Even from this distance, she could see his unnatural pallor, the way shadows seemed to cling to him despite the morning sunlight. Mom, I'm cold again, Theo's teeth chattered. It's happening. Mara touched his forehead. His skin was like ice. The mark on his shoulder was glowing through his shirt, a silver-white light that pulsed with his heartbeat. Stay with me, baby. Just breathe. Outside, Detective Reeves was shouting at the figure, her weapon drawn. Other officers flanked her, all armed. But the intruder didn't move, didn't respond, just stood there like a statue. Then he blurred. One moment, he was 20 feet from the building. The next, he was at the entrance, moving faster than anything human. Officers opened fire. Mara saw the muzzle flashes, heard the muted pops through the glass, but the figure weaved between bullets like smoke. Get away from the window. The young officer grabbed Mara's arm, pulling her and Theo toward the back of the office. The door exploded inward. Not opened, exploded. Wood splintered. Hinges tore from the frame. The figure stood in the doorway, and Mara could finally see him clearly. He looked younger than Lucien, maybe early 20s in human years, with platinum hair and eyes that glowed an eerie red. His mouth pulled back in a snarl, revealing elongated canines. The marked child, he hissed. Finally, the young officer fired his weapon. 3 shots, center mass. The figure didn't even flinch. The bullets passed through him like he was made of mist, embedding in the wall behind. Run, the officer shouted, stepping between them and the intruder. Get the kid out of here. Mara didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed Theo and bolted through the back door into the hallway. Behind her, she heard the officer scream, a sound that cut off too quickly. Mom, Theo sobbed, his small legs struggling to keep up. They burst through the emergency exit into the bright morning sun. Mara's car was 50 feet away. They could make it. They had to make it. Something landed in front of them. The platinum-haired vampire had somehow gotten ahead of them, moving impossibly fast. Up close, Mara could see that his skin was covered in intricate tattoos, the same symbol as Theo's mark, repeated hundreds of times across his arms and neck. You cannot run from me, child. His voice was like gravel. Your blood calls to us. It sings through the city. Get away from him. Mara shoved Theo behind her, knowing it was useless, knowing they were going to die. A blur of motion. A sound like thunder. Lucien appeared from nowhere, slamming into the platinum-haired vampire with enough force to send both of them tumbling across the asphalt. They rolled to their feet instantly, circling each other. Cale Lucien's voice was cold. You break the old laws. The old laws died with the old world. Cale smiled, blood on his teeth. The marked child belongs to whoever claims him first. He belongs to no one. I made an oath. Your oath means nothing. You're a relic, Lucien. A king without a kingdom. Cale lunged, moving faster than Mara's eyes could follow. But Lucien was faster. He caught Kale's wrist mid-strike, twisted, and threw him into a parked car. Metal crumpled like paper. The car alarm shrieked. "Take the boy and run," Lucien said without looking at Mara. "I'll find you." "Where?" "Run." Mara grabbed Theo and ran. Behind her, the sounds of the fight were inhuman. Metal tearing, concrete cracking, growls that made her blood freeze. She threw Theo into the car, started the engine with shaking hands, and floored it. In the rearview mirror, she saw Lucien standing alone in the parking lot, covered in dark blood. Kale was gone, fled or dead. She didn't know. Police swarmed the area, but they all seemed confused, looking right past Lucien as if he wasn't there. Mara drove. No destination. Just away. "Mom, where are we going?" Theo's voice was small. "I don't know. Are we going to die?" The question hit her like a punch. She pulled over on a side street, turned to face her son, and took his freezing hands in hers.
No.
"I won't let that happen. But that man, those things." "I know, baby. I know." Tears burned her eyes. "I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I'm so sorry I can't make it stop." Theo's lower lip trembled. "What am I, Mom?" Before Mara could answer, the passenger door opened. Lucien slid into the seat, moving with that eerie, fluid grace. Up close, she could see wounds on his face healing in real time, skin knitting back together. "Drive," he commanded. "We don't have much time. Kale will bring others." "Where are we supposed to go?" Mara's voice cracked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere I can explain everything without interruption." His dark eyes met hers. "And where I can teach the boy to control what's awakening inside him, before it kills him." The mark on Theo's shoulder flared bright enough to see through his shirt. He whimpered in pain. "It's accelerating," Lucien said grimly. "The attack triggered something. We have less time than I thought." Mara's hands tightened on the wheel. "Then tell me where to go." "Head south, toward the old industrial district. There's an abandoned station beneath the city, a place humans forgot decades ago." He glanced at Theo in the back seat, something almost like pity in his ancient eyes. "A place where we can hide, at least for a while." The old industrial district looked like the end of the world. Rusted factories with broken windows lined the streets, graffiti covering every surface. Homeless encampments dotted the sidewalks, fires burning in metal drums. Mara's Honda felt absurdly out of place. "Turn here," Lucien instructed, pointing to an alley barely wide enough for the car. "This can't be right." "Trust me." Mara turned. The alley opened into a wider space, an abandoned rail yard with tracks disappearing into a dark tunnel. Lucien gestured for her to stop. "We walk from here. The entrance is hidden." Theo can barely stand. Mara looked at her son in the rearview mirror. His skin had taken on a grayish pallor, frost forming at his hairline. What's happening to him? The mark is trying to complete its awakening, but his body is fighting it. He's caught between human and something else. Lucien opened his door. "If we don't stabilize him soon." "Don't," Mara's voice shook. "Don't finish that sentence." She helped Theo out of the car. He leaned heavily against her, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Lucien led them toward the tunnel entrance, to what looked like a solid concrete wall. He pressed his palm against it. Ancient symbols glowed red beneath his touch, and the wall shimmered, revealing a passageway. "Stay close. Don't touch the walls." They descended into darkness. The air grew colder with each step, and Mara could hear water dripping somewhere in the distance. After what felt like forever, they emerged into a massive underground station. It was beautiful in a haunting way. Vaulted ceilings covered in faded murals. Old platforms with benches that looked like they hadn't been used in a century. Candles, hundreds of them, flickered in alcoves, casting dancing shadows. "What is this place?" Mara whispered. "A sanctuary, built in the 1800s by vampires who wanted peace with humans. It's been abandoned for decades, but the protective wards still hold." Lucien gently took Theo from Mara's arms. The boy was barely conscious. "Bring him here." He carried Theo to a stone bench and laid him down carefully. The mark on Theo's shoulder was spreading faster now, silver lines crawling up his neck, down his arm. "We need to slow the awakening," Lucien said. "His body isn't ready." The sound of footsteps echoed through the station. Multiple sets. Moving fast. Lucien's head snapped up, his expression darkening. We were followed. By Kale? Worse. 5 figures emerged from different entrances, surrounding them. They wore dark tactical gear and carried weapons that looked like crossbows but gleamed with an unnatural silver light. Their faces were hard, scarred human. The leader, a woman with a shaved head and a burn scar covering half her face, stepped forward. "Lucien, the fallen king. And you've brought us exactly what we need." "Hunters," Lucien said quietly. "Mara, get behind me." "We're not here for you, vampire." The woman raised her crossbow, aiming at Theo. "We're here for the abomination." "He's a child," Mara screamed. "He's a weapon." A plague waiting to happen. The hunter's eyes were cold. The marked child will awaken a new vampire bloodline.
Tu sonst will die.
We're here to prevent that. By murdering an 8-year-old? Mara moved to shield Theo's unconscious body. "He's innocent. No one with that mark is innocent. It's a curse," the hunter gestured to her team.
Take him.
"Kill the vampire if he interferes." Lucien moved to block them, his body tensing. "You'll have to go through me." "That can be arranged," the hunter smiled grimly. "Silver core bolts. Blessed by every religious order from here to Rome. Even you can't survive these, old king." 3 crossbows fired simultaneously. Lucien dodged 2, but the third caught him in the shoulder. He gasped, stumbling backward. Where the bolt pierced his skin, flesh sizzled and blackened. He grabbed the bolt and yanked it out with a snarl of pain, but Mara could see the wound wasn't healing. "Mom," Theo's voice was barely a whisper. His eyes fluttered open, glowing with that eerie silver light.
Cold.
So cold. "Stay down, baby. Don't move."
2 hunters advanced on them.
Mara grabbed the only thing she could reach, a rusted metal rod from the old station, and swung it wildly. She caught one hunter across the face. He stumbled, cursing, but the other grabbed her arm, twisting it painfully. The rod clattered to the ground. "Mara!" Lucien tried to reach her, but another bolt hit him in the leg. He collapsed. The lead hunter stepped over him, aiming her crossbow directly at Theo's heart.
"I'm sorry, kid.
But you're too dangerous to live."
No."
Mara struggled against the hunter holding her, screaming. The hunter's finger tightened on the trigger, and Theo's eyes opened fully, blazing with silver-white light. The temperature plummeted. Frost exploded outward from Theo's body in a violent wave, covering everything within 20 feet. The hunters were thrown backward, their weapons clattering to the ground. Ice covered their tactical gear, their exposed skin turning blue. The mark on Theo's shoulder burned so bright Mara had to shield her eyes. The silver lines now covered half his body, pulsing with power.
"Get
away!" Theo's voice didn't sound like his own. It echoed, multiplied, ancient. "Don't hurt my mom." Another pulse of freezing energy burst from him. The candles extinguished. Icicles formed on the ceiling. One hunter who'd been trying to crawl toward his weapon froze solid, encased in ice. "Theo, stop." Mara broke free and ran to her son. "You're going to hurt yourself." She grabbed his hand, his freezing, burning hand, and the connection jolted through her like electricity. She could feel his terror, his pain, the power tearing him apart from the inside. "It's okay, baby. I'm here. I've got you." Slowly, the light dimmed. The temperature stabilized. Theo collapsed into her arms, unconscious again, but his breathing was steadier. The hunters who could still move were retreating, dragging their injured with them. The lead hunter stared at Theo with something between fear and awe. "He's already awakening," she said. "God help us all." Then they were gone. Lucien pulled himself to his feet, grimacing. The wounds from the blessed bolts were healing now, but slowly. "We can't stay here." They'll return with more. Better equipped. Where can we go? Mara held Theo close, feeling how cold he still was. Everyone's hunting him. Vampires. Hunters. Who's next? Lucien looked at her with those ancient, sad eyes. Everyone. Mara couldn't stop shaking. Theo lay unconscious in her arms, his breathing shallow, the silver lines on his skin pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The underground station felt like a tomb now, cold, dark, and offering no real protection. We need to move, Lucien said, still clutching his wounded shoulder. The flesh around it looked charred, refusing to heal properly. They'll regroup. Bring reinforcements. You can barely stand. I'll manage. He moved toward one of the deeper tunnels. There's another sanctuary. Older.
Deeper.
Even hunters don't know about it. And how long until they find that one too? Mara's voice cracked. How long do we keep running? Lucien turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something like uncertainty in his expression. I don't know. The admission terrified her more than anything else that had happened. A sound echoed through the station, footsteps, coming from the entrance they'd used. Lucien tensed, positioning himself between Mara and the sound. But it wasn't the hunters returning. 3 figures emerged from the shadows, moving with the same fluid grace as Lucien. 2 men and a woman, all pale, all dressed in clothes that seemed to belong to different centuries. The woman wore a Victorian-era dress. One of the men looked like he'd stepped out of the 1940s. The other wore modern clothes but carried himself with ancient authority. Lucien, the woman, spoke first, her voice carrying a faint French accent. We felt the awakening. The entire city felt it. Genevieve, Lucien didn't relax. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, old friend. And yet here we are, drawn to the marked child like moths to flame. She stepped closer, her eyes fixing on Theo. Is it true? After 500 years. Stay back. Mara pulled Theo closer, though she knew it was useless. If these vampires wanted to take him, there was nothing she could do to stop them. We're not here to harm the boy, the man in modern clothes said. His voice was softer, kinder than she'd expected.
I'm Adrian.
This is Genevieve and Thomas. We're what you might call peaceful. We've lived among humans for decades without feeding on them. How comforting, Mara said bitterly. Thomas, the one in 1940s clothes, laughed. She has spirit. I like her. This isn't a social call. Lucien's tone was sharp. What do you want? To help, Genevieve said simply. Kale and his faction want to use the boy. The hunters want to kill him. But there's another option. Protect him. Guide him. Let the awakening complete naturally. Why would you help us? Mara demanded. Because we're tired of hiding, Adrian answered. Tired of the old wars. If the marked child brings balance between our worlds, maybe we can finally have peace. But if Kale gets to him first, or if the hunters succeed in killing him, the wars will only escalate. They know where we are, Lucien said. Hunters found this sanctuary. The 3 vampires exchanged glances. Thomas spoke first. Then we moved to the Deep Warren. It's protected by blood wards. Only those we allow can enter. The Deep Warren hasn't been used in a century, Lucien said. The wards may have failed. Only one way to find out. Genevieve moved toward a different tunnel, one so dark Mara couldn't see past the entrance. Bring the boy. Quickly. Mara looked at Lucien. Can we trust them? I don't know, he admitted. But right now, they're offering us more than we have, a chance. They had no choice. Mara carried Theo as they descended deeper into the earth. The air grew thick, heavy with age. The tunnels here were older than the station, carved from raw stone. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly in Theo's presence. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, they emerged into a vast underground chamber. Unlike the abandoned station above, this place was clearly maintained. Furniture from different eras lined the walls, Victorian couches next to modern folding chairs. Books stacked everywhere. A kitchenette in one corner, though Mara doubted vampires needed it. Battery-powered lanterns provided soft light. "Welcome to the Deep Warren," Adrian said. "It's not much, but it's home." Genevieve gestured to a makeshift bedroom partitioned off with curtains. "Lay the boy there. He needs rest." Mara placed Theo on the bed, a surprisingly comfortable mattress with clean sheets. His color was better now, less gray, but the mark continued its slow spread across his skin. "How do we stop this?" she asked, turning to face the vampires. 4 of them now, watching her son with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. "How do we save him?" "We don't stop it," Lucien said quietly. "We can only slow it, give his body time to adapt. And if his body can't adapt..." Silence. "There is one possibility," Genevieve said slowly. "A ritual. Very old, very dangerous. It could stabilize the awakening, prevent it from consuming him." "What kind of ritual?" "It requires a blood bond between the Mark child and someone he trusts completely. Someone willing to share the burden of the power." Genevieve looked directly at Mara. "A parent would be ideal." "What does that mean?" "Share the burden." "It means the Mark would link to you as well," Adrian explained. "You'd feel what he feels, carry part of the power. It would slow his transformation, give him years instead of weeks." "But..." Mara heard the unspoken warning. "But it would also put you at risk," Lucien said. "If he dies, you die. If you die, the shock could kill him. Your lives would be permanently intertwined." Thomas snorted. "She's his mother. Their lives are already intertwined." Mara looked at Theo, at her little boy who loved dinosaurs and video games, now glowing with supernatural power. She thought about every scraped knee she'd bandaged, every nightmare she'd chased away, every sacrifice she'd made since the day he was born. "Tell me how to do the ritual." "Mara," Lucien started. "Tell me how to save my son." Genevieve nodded slowly. "Very well. But you should know, once the bond is formed, you'll be marked as well. The hunters will come for you. Kale's faction will see you as an equal threat. You won't just be protecting Theo anymore. You'll be part of this war." "I've been part of it since the moment that mark appeared on his skin." Mara's voice was steel. "So, tell me, what do I need to do?" Adrian pulled an old leather journal from a shelf, flipping through pages covered in symbols and text in languages Mara didn't recognize. "The ritual must be performed at the moment of greatest need, when the mark's power peaks. We'll know when." "How long do we have?" "Hours," Lucien said grimly. "Maybe a day." The attack triggered something. The awakening is accelerating. A sound echoed through the chamber, distant, but distinct. Voices. Footsteps. Many of them. Thomas moved to the tunnel entrance, his expression darkening. "We have company." Multiple groups converging on this location.
Impossible, Geneviève Breted.
"The wards should have hidden us. Unless someone broke them," Adrian's face paled. "Unless someone let them in." They all turned to look at each other, suspicion poisoning the air. Lucien moved to Mara's side, positioning himself between her and the others. "Who did you tell?" "No one," Genevieve insisted. "We came alone." A figure dropped from a ceiling vent none of them had noticed. He landed in a crouch, platinum hair unmistakable in the lantern light. Kale smiled, blood on his teeth. "Did you really think you could hide from me, old king? The boy's power is a beacon." And now, he gestured to the tunnel entrance where shadows were gathering, dozens of them. "Now we end this." Kale wasn't alone. Figures poured from the tunnel entrance, at least 20 vampires, their eyes glowing red in the dim light. Behind them, moving more cautiously, came the hunters. The 2 groups that should have been enemies were somehow working together, united by a common goal. "Kill the Mark child." "A truce," Kale announced, gesturing to the lead hunter, the scarred woman from before. "Temporary, of course. But we both agree. The boy is too dangerous to live." "Marcus, you betrayed us." Lucien's voice was cold, looking at Thomas. "You led them here." No." Thomas backed away, hands raised. "I would never." "Save the denials." The scarred hunter raised her weapon. "We tracked them through you. Your phone, Thomas. You've been compromised for months. Thomas's face went white. He pulled out his phone, staring at it in horror. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. Doesn't matter now. Adrian moved to stand beside Lucien, fangs extending. We protect the boy. Genevieve joined them, forming a barrier between Mara and the advancing threats. This is madness. Vampires and hunters working together? Desperate times, Kale said with a shrug. The boy dies tonight. After that, we can go back to killing each other. Mara felt Theo stir in her arms. His eyes fluttered open, not brown anymore, but pure silver, glowing like molten metal. His skin was ice cold, frost forming on her jacket where he touched her. Mom, his voice was wrong, layered with echoes. I feel strange. It's okay, baby. Stay calm. But Theo wasn't calm. His body began to convulse, back arching. The mark on his shoulder blazed so bright Mara had to look away. The silver lines spread faster now, covering his entire torso, reaching toward his face. The awakening, Genevieve shouted. It's happening now. Then we end it now. Kale lunged forward with supernatural speed. Lucien intercepted him, and the two collided with bone-shattering force. They became a blur of motion, trading blows faster than Mara could follow. Adrian and Genevieve engaged the other vampires, and suddenly the chamber erupted into chaos. The hunters opened fire. Silver-tipped bolts whistled through the air. One caught Genevieve in the stomach. She screamed, falling. No! Adrian caught her, his face twisted with rage. You'll pay for that. Thomas stood frozen, torn between helping his friends and the realization that he'd led everyone to their deaths. A vampire from Kale's faction grabbed him, fangs sinking into his throat. He didn't even have time to scream. Mara pressed herself against the wall, shielding Theo with her body. Her son's convulsions were getting worse. His temperature was dropping so rapidly that her hands were going numb. The mark had spread to his face now, silver patterns tracing his cheeks like frost on a window. Theo, listen to me. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. I need you to breathe. Just breathe with me. Can't. Stop it. Tears froze on his cheeks. Hurts. Everything hurts. A hunter broke through the fighting vampires, crossbow aimed directly at Theo. Sorry, kid. Mara threw herself over her son. She felt the bolt punch through her shoulder, white-hot agony exploding through her body. She screamed, collapsing. Emma. Theo's voice shattered like glass, and the world exploded in silver light. The power that burst from Theo was beyond anything he'd released before. It wasn't a wave, it was a detonation. Ice erupted from his body in violent spikes, impaling the nearest hunters. The temperature dropped so fast that water vapor in the air crystallized, creating a blizzard inside the underground chamber. Vampires and hunters alike were thrown against the walls. Kale himself was blasted backward, crashing into the stone with enough force to crack it. Theo rose from the bed, floating inches above the ground, his entire body blazing with silver-white light. His eyes had no pupils anymore, just pure radiance. The mark covered every inch of exposed skin, and his hair had turned white as snow. Don't touch my mother. The voice that came from him was ancient, terrible, the voice of something that had slept for centuries. Theo, Mara tried to reach for him, but her shoulder was on fire. The blessed bolt had done something to her. She could feel poison spreading through her blood. Lucien pulled himself from the rubble, his face bloodied. The boy, he's losing himself to the power. If he doesn't stop, it will consume him completely. How do we stop him? Adrian shouted over the roaring wind that had somehow started in the enclosed space. The ritual. Now. Genevieve crawled forward, clutching her wounded stomach. It's the only way. He's too far gone. Then we're all dead anyway. Genevieve thrust the leather journal at Mara. Page 47. Read it. Now. Mara's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, her vision blurring. The bolt's poison was working fast. She found the page, ancient text in a language she didn't understand, but below it, handwritten in English, blood of the protector, freely given. Words of binding, spoken true. Life for life, heart to heart. I can't read this. You don't need to read it, Lucien said, suddenly beside her. He pressed his hand over her wound, and the poison's spread slowed. You just need to mean it. Take his hand. Tell him you're with him. That you'll carry this burden together. Mara looked up at her son, her baby boy, who was now a being of pure power, destroying everything around him. Hunters lay frozen solid. Vampires were pinned to walls by ice spikes. The ceiling was cracking, chunks of stone falling.
Ta!
She forced herself to her feet, ignoring the screaming pain in her shoulder. Theo, look at me. The glowing eyes turned toward her. I'm your mom. I'm here. I'm always here. She reached out with her uninjured hand. Take my hand, baby. Let me help you. For a moment, nothing happened. The power continued to rage, the chamber collapsing around them. Then, slowly, a small hand reached out from the light. The moment their fingers touched, Mara felt it, a surge of energy so intense it stopped her heart. She felt Theo's fear, his pain, his terror at what he was becoming. But she also felt his love for her, pure and absolute. I've got you, she whispered. I'll always have you. The light began to fade. The temperature stabilized. Theo drifted back down to the ground, and Mara caught him as he collapsed. The mark on his shoulder was still there, but it had stopped spreading. And now, on Mara's own shoulder, beneath her torn and bloodied shirt, an identical mark began to burn into her skin. She gasped at the pain, but held on to Theo as the ritual completed itself, binding their lives together with threads of ancient magic. When it was over, they both collapsed to the floor, unconscious, wrapped in each other's arms. Lucien stood over them, battered and bleeding, and looked at the devastation around the chamber. Half the attackers were dead. The rest had fled. Genevieve and Adrian were wounded, but alive. And in the center of it all, mother and son lay wrapped in a faint silver glow, their heartbeats synchronized, their breathing matched. It's done, Genevieve whispered. The bond is formed. Mara woke to the sound of dripping water and hushed voices. Her shoulder throbbed with a dull ache, but the burning poison was gone. She opened her eyes to find herself lying on a makeshift cot, a thin blanket covering her. Theo slept beside her, his breathing steady, his skin warm for the first time in days. The mark on her shoulder pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. She could feel him, not just his presence, but his emotions, his dreams. It was overwhelming and comforting at the same time. You're awake, Lucien appeared beside the cot, looking haggard. His wounds had healed, but exhaustion etched deep lines into his pale face. How do you feel? Like I was struck by lightning, Mara sat up slowly, wincing.
Tao.
He's stable. The bond worked. His awakening has slowed considerably. Lucien handed her a bottle of water. You saved his life. We're not safe, though, are we? No. He glanced toward the entrance where Adrian stood guard, a makeshift spear in hand. Kale escaped. So did most of the hunters. They'll regroup. Come back stronger. Genevieve limped over, her stomach wound bandaged with strips of torn cloth. We need to leave the city. Tonight. I have contacts in the north, vampires who still respect the old ways. They'll shelter you. Running forever isn't a life, Mara said bitterly. It's better than dying. A sound echoed through the tunnel, footsteps, deliberate and unhurried. Adrian tensed, raising his weapon. Someone's coming. Multiple someones, Lucien corrected, his expression darkening. I can hear at least 6 distinct heartbeats. No, not heartbeats. They're like us. 6 figures emerged from the shadows. They were vampires, but different from Kale's faction. These wore ancient armor, actual medieval plate mail mixed with older styles, Roman and Greek. Their faces were hard, scarred, the faces of warriors who'd survived centuries of battle. The leader was a tall woman with black hair braided for war, a sword strapped to her back. She looked at Lucien with cold familiarity. General Sable, Lucien's voice was carefully neutral. It's been a long time. Not long enough, my king. Her tone dripped with mockery on the last word. Or should I say, former king. You abdicated that title when you chose humans over your own kind. What do you want? What we've always wanted. Power. Order. The restoration of vampire supremacy. Sable's eyes moved to Theo, and something hungry flickered in them. And now you've gift-wrapped it for us. The marked child, bonded and stabilized. Perfect. Mara moved to shield Theo, but she could barely stand. The bond had drained her more than she'd realized. The boy is under my protection, Lucien said, positioning himself between Sable and the cot. Your protection? Another general stepped forward. A man with burned scars covering half his face, one eye milky white. You? The exile who swore a blood oath to protect marked children? We know about your precious oath, Lucien. We also know it makes you weak. Cassius, Lucien's jaw clenched. I should have killed you during the purge, but you didn't, because you're soft. You always were, Cassius smiled, revealing filed fangs. That's why we followed you into exile, to wait for this moment. To wait for you to find the marked child and do all the hard work for us. Mara's blood ran cold. You've been planning this for 500 years. Patience is easy when you're immortal, Sable said. Lucien would never harm a child, never take the power by force. But he'd protect one, stabilize one, prepare one. All we had to do was wait. Then take me. Theo's small voice cut through the tension. He'd woken up, his silver-marked eyes clear and focused. Leave my mom alone. I'll go with you.
No.
Mara grabbed him.
Theo.
Mom, I can feel it. Through the bond. You're dying. Tears streamed down his face. The ritual is killing you. Your heart's getting weaker. I can't. I won't let you die for me. Mara felt it then, the truth she'd been trying to ignore. Her heartbeat was irregular, struggling to maintain the rhythm synced with Theo's. The bond was draining her life force to fuel his stabilization. He's right, Genevieve whispered. The bond is unsustainable. She's human. Her body can't handle the strain. There is a solution, Sable said, her voice almost kind. Break the bond. Let the boy come with us. We'll complete his awakening properly, and your precious human will live. You'll turn him into a weapon, Lucien snarled. We'll turn him into a king. Our king. With his power, we'll rule both the vampire and human worlds. Sable drew her sword, a blade that seemed to drink the light. Step aside, Lucien. This is bigger than your outdated oath. I won't let you. Cassius moved faster than Mara could see. One moment Lucien was standing, the next he was on the ground, Cassius's boot on his throat. The other 4 generals surrounded Adrian and Genevieve, weapons drawn. You're outnumbered, outmatched, and outlived your usefulness, Sable said. She walked toward Theo, sword pointed at Mara's heart. Last chance, boy. Come willingly, or watch your mother die. Theo stood on shaking legs, his small body dwarfed by the armored generals. Promise you won't hurt her.
Theo, no. I promise, Sable lied smoothly.
You have my word. Theo took a step toward her. Then another. Mara tried to reach for him, but her body wouldn't respond. The bond was pulling at her, draining everything. That's it, Sable coaxed. Just a few more steps. Theo's eyes flashed silver. I said, promise you won't hurt her. The temperature dropped. Frost spread across the floor. Sable's smile faltered. You're lying, Theo said softly. I can feel it. Through the bond, I can feel everything. My mom's fear, her pain, and your lies. His voice grew colder, harder. You'll kill her the moment I'm yours. Smart boy. Sable's kindness evaporated. Cassius, kill the woman. That'll break his spirit. Cassius raised his sword, ready to bring it down on Mara's neck. And Lucien, drawing on reserves of strength that shouldn't exist, erupted upward. He grabbed Cassius's sword arm and twisted. Bones snapped. Cassius howled. Run. Lucien roared. Adrian threw Genevieve over his shoulder and bolted for a side tunnel. Mara grabbed Theo, her body screaming in protest, and followed. Behind them, The sound of combat exploded, metal clashing, inhuman snarls, the crunch of breaking stone. They ran through tunnels that seemed to go on forever, Theo's power lighting their way, Mara's heart struggling with each beat. She could feel it failing, feel the bond pulling her down into darkness. "Mom, stay with me," Theo sobbed. "Please, please stay with me." "Always," she gasped. "Always with you." They burst into another chamber, empty, thank God, and collapsed. Adrian set Genevieve down and immediately began checking exits. "We're trapped," he said grimly. "This chamber only has one entrance. They'll be here in minutes." Mara looked at her son, at the mark they now shared, at the impossible choice before them. Save Theo by breaking the bond and letting him be taken, or die together. There had to be another way. There had to be. The entrance exploded inward. The 6 generals stood there, Lucien's unconscious body hanging from Cassius's grip. Sable smiled. Nowhere left to run. Mara's vision blurred at the edges. Each heartbeat was agony, her chest tight like it was being crushed in a vice. Through the bond, she could feel Theo's terror, and something else.
Power.
Raw, untamed power building inside him, like a storm about to break. "Don't," she whispered, gripping his hand. "Don't lose control again." "But they're going to." "I know, baby. I know." She pulled him close, feeling frost forming on her skin where he touched her. "But if you explode like before, you'll kill us both." "The bond, remember?" Sable approached slowly, savoring her victory. "It's almost poetic. The great Lucien, who sacrificed everything to protect marked children, brought down by his own weakness, she kicked Lucien's unconscious body. He didn't respond. Leave him alone."
"Thou shalt that?"
"Or what? You'll freeze us." Cassius laughed, cradling his broken arm. "You're a child playing with powers you don't understand. But we do. We've waited centuries for this." "The bond is killing your mother," Sable continued, crouching to meet Theo's eyes. "I can smell her dying. Her heart's barely beating. In an hour, maybe 2, she'll be dead. And when she dies, the shock will probably kill you too." "Then what do you want?" Mara gasped. Each word was harder to form. "Break the bond. Voluntarily. It can be done. Genevieve knows the ritual." Sable gestured to the wounded vampire. "Break it. Let us take the boy, and I'll let you live. You can go back to your pathetic human existence. And if I refuse? Then we take him anyway, and you die." Sable shrugged. "The only difference is whether you watch him become ours, or whether you're dead before it happens." Mara looked at Genevieve. The vampire's face was pale, but she nodded slightly. The breaking ritual was real. "Mom, don't," Theo whispered. "I won't go with them. I won't." "Shoo." Mara stroked his white hair, her hand trembling. "It's okay. It's not okay. Nothing about this is okay." Tears froze on his cheeks. "You're dying because of me. I'm dying because I chose to save you. And I'd choose it again." She kissed his forehead. "Every time." How touching. Cassius spat blood on the ground. "Are we doing this or not? My arm needs healing." Mara closed her eyes. She could feel her heart struggling, missing beats, speeding up erratically as it tried to stay synchronized with Theo's. The bond was indeed killing her. In minutes, not hours. But there was something else she felt through the connection. Something the generals didn't know about. When she'd formed the bond, she hadn't just linked her life to Theo's. She'd linked her will to his power. "Genevieve," Mara said slowly, "the breaking ritual. Does it require both participants to consent?" Genevieve's eyes widened slightly.
"Yes."
"Both must willingly." "Then no." Mara pulled Theo closer. "We won't break it. Mom, you'll die." "I'm dying anyway, baby. But this way, we stay together." She looked at Sable. "You can't take him from me. Not while the bond holds. And if you kill me, you kill him too." Sable's face darkened. "You're bluffing." "Try me." Mara's voice was weak, but steady. "You've waited 500 years. Are you willing to gamble that you can break a mother's bond by force?" The generals exchanged glances. Cassius stepped forward. We don't need both of them alive.
Take the boy.
When she dies, he'll be weakened. Easier to control. No, Sable held up her hand. She's right. The bond is too unpredictable. If we force it and he dies, we lose everything. Then what do you suggest? We wait. Let her die naturally. Keep them contained until nothing, a new voice said. Everyone turned. Lucien stood, blood streaming down his face, his eyes blazing with an inner fire Mara had never seen before. You forgot something, my old friends. You forgot why I was king. He moved. Faster than the generals, faster than anything should move. He tore Cassius's head from his shoulders in one fluid motion. The body crumpled, dissolving into ash. Sable swung her sword, but Lucien caught the blade with his bare hand. His skin sizzled and burned, but he didn't let go. I let you leave during the purge because I believed in mercy. That was my mistake. He yanked the sword from her grip and drove it through her chest. She gasped, eyes wide with shock, and collapsed. The remaining 4 generals attacked as one. Adrian and Genevieve, wounded as they were, joined the fight. The chamber erupted into chaos. But Mara barely saw it. Her vision was darkening, her heart giving out. She could feel the exact moment it stopped trying to beat. Mom. Theo's scream was distant, like he was shouting from the end of a long tunnel.
No.
She felt him trying to force power through the bond, trying to restart her heart with his cold fire. But it wasn't working. She was human. Her body couldn't sustain this. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Then warmth. Impossible. Blessed warmth flooding through the bond. Not from Theo. From somewhere else. Mara's eyes snapped open. Lucien knelt beside her, his hand pressed over her heart. His own blood, ancient, powerful blood, dripped from his wounded hand onto her chest, soaking into her skin. What are you? Saving you both, he said through gritted teeth. A vampire's blood can heal humans. It can also sustain them, temporarily. The bond will hold. Your heart will beat. For now, his face was gray with exhaustion. But there's a cost. My blood in your veins. You'll be different. Not vampire, but not entirely human either. Mara felt it, her heart stuttering back to life, beating stronger, finding its rhythm again with Theo's. But Lucien was right. Something had changed. She could see better in the dark. Hear the combat around them with crystal clarity. Feel the cold without discomfort. The generals she managed.
Dead.
All of them. Lucien slumped beside her. Finally, Theo threw himself into Mara's arms, sobbing. I thought you were gone. I thought. I'm here. I'm still here. She held him tight, feeling their synchronized heartbeats, stronger now. We're both still here. Adrian appeared, supporting Genevieve. Both were covered in blood. We need to leave.
Now.
When word spreads that Lucien killed his own generals, every vampire faction will come for us. Let them come, Lucien said quietly. I'm done running. Done hiding. He looked at Mara and Theo. But you too, you should go. Far from here. I can buy you time. No, Mara's voice was stronger now, powered by whatever Lucien's blood had done to her. We stay together. All of us. The hunters will come too, Genevieve warned. And Kale. Once they learn the generals are dead, they'll strike fast. Then we strike first, Mara said. The word surprised even her. We stop running. We stop hiding. We fight. Lucien stared at her, something like respect in his ancient eyes. You've changed. We all have, she stood, pulling Theo up with her. So, what do? We find allies, Adrian said. There are peaceful vampires. Humans who know about us. We build an army. Or, Genevieve said slowly, we end this the old way. What's the old way?
Theo asked.
Lucien's expression darkened. A blood summit. All factions gather under the old truce laws. We negotiate. But Mara, he met her eyes. If we do this, You'll have to stand as Theo's guardian before the Vampire Council. They'll see you as something other than human now. They'll test you. And if you fail, we all die, Mara finished. I understand.
Do you?
Because the tests aren't gentle. They're designed to break you, to prove you're unworthy. Mara looked at her son, at the mark they shared, at the impossible bond that had saved them both. Then I won't break. Dawn was 2 hours away when they emerged from the underground. The city looked different to Mara now, sharper, more alive. She could hear conversations from blocks away, smell the salt from the harbor miles distant, see heat signatures from living bodies through walls. Lucien's blood had changed her in ways she was only beginning to understand. The summit will be held in 3 days, Lucien said as they walked through empty streets. In the old cathedral on the east side. It's been neutral ground for 2 centuries. 3 days to prepare for something that could get us all killed, Adrian muttered. Wonderful. What exactly happens at a blood summit? Mara asked, keeping Theo close. He was calmer now. The mark's glow dimmed to a faint shimmer, but she could still feel his exhaustion through the bond. Representatives from every major faction attend. Vampire councils, hunter guilds, even the human government's secret supernatural division. Genevieve limped beside them, her wound still healing slowly. Everyone comes under a truce banner. Violate the truce, and you're declared enemy to all. Sounds civilized. It's not. Lucien's voice was grim. The truce only lasts while you're inside the cathedral. The moment you step outside, you're fair game again. They reached a small apartment building in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Adrian produced a key and led them to a 3rd-floor unit, sparse but clean, with reinforced doors and windows covered by heavy curtains. Safe house, he explained. One of several we maintain. No one knows about this one except us. Mara settled Theo on a couch. He was asleep almost instantly, his small body finally succumbing to exhaustion. She brushed white hair from his forehead, marveling at how much had changed in just days. You should rest too, Lucien said softly. The blood change will be draining. Your body is still adapting. I need to understand what happens at the summit first. Mara turned to face him. What are these tests you mentioned? Lucien exchanged glances with the others. Finally, he spoke. There are 3 trials. The first is truth. You must submit to questioning by the council, and they'll know if you lie. They'll ask about your intentions, your worthiness to guard a marked child. I can handle questions. The second is strength. You must prove you can physically protect Theo. They'll send champions to fight you. Mara's stomach dropped. I'm not a fighter. I'm a waitress. You were a waitress, Genevieve corrected. Lucien's blood gave you enhanced abilities. Speed, strength, healing, not vampire level, but far beyond human. We can train you. In 3 days. It's not ideal, Adrian admitted, but it's what we have. What's the 3rd trial? Mara asked, dreading the answer. Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Sacrifice. They'll ask you to prove you're willing to die for him. How they test that varies. Sometimes it's symbolic. Sometimes he didn't finish. Sometimes they actually try to kill you, Mara finished. To see if I'll really take a bullet or a stake for my son. Yes. Mara looked at Theo's sleeping form. That's not even a question. Of course I would. Saying it and doing it are different things, Genevieve said gently. When you're staring down a weapon aimed at your heart, when every instinct screams to dodge, to survive, that's when they'll know if you mean it. Then they'll know. Mara's voice was steel. Because I do. The next 3 days passed in a blur of brutal training. Adrian taught her to fight, basic combat, how to use her new speed and strength, where to strike on both human and vampire opponents. Genevieve worked on her mental discipline, teaching her to resist vampire compulsion and to lie convincingly with her body language while telling truth with her words. Lucien sparred with her personally, not holding back. She broke bones that healed in hours. She learned to ignore pain, to push past exhaustion, to trust instincts she didn't know she had. And through it all, she felt Theo watching, the bond letting her sense his fear, his guilt, his love. On the second night, She found him sitting by the window, staring at the city lights. "Can't sleep?" she asked, settling beside him. "I keep thinking about what happens if you fail." His voice was small. "What happens to me? I won't fail. But if you do." "Theo," she turned him to face her. "Listen to me. Every single thing I've done since you were born has been to protect you. Every double shift, every missed meal so you could eat, every choice, it's all been for you. This is no different. But you could die. We all could. But we'll die fighting." Together, she pulled him close. "The bond means we're never alone. Whatever happens in that cathedral, we face it together. Okay." He nodded against her shoulder. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. More than anything in this world or any other." The night of the summit arrived cold and clear. They dressed carefully, Mara in simple dark clothes that allowed movement, Theo in a white shirt that made the mark on his shoulder visible through the fabric. A statement. They weren't hiding anymore. The cathedral loomed before them, ancient stone covered in centuries of grime. Vampires gathered on the steps, dozens of them, from different factions, eyeing each other warily under the truce. Hunters stood separate, weapons visible but lowered. And in the shadows, other things, creatures Mara couldn't identify, drawn by the Mark child's presence. "Ready?" Lucian asked. Mara took Theo's hand. Through the bond, she felt his fear spike, then steady as he felt her determination. They made each other stronger. That was what the generals had never understood. "Ready," she said. They climbed the steps together. The crowd parted reluctantly, whispers following them. Mara felt their stares, their hunger, their hatred. But she kept walking head high. Inside, the cathedral was vast, lit by hundreds of candles. A council of 12 sat in the front, 6 vampires, 6 humans. In the center sat an ancient vampire who made even Lucian look young, his skin like parchment, his eyes milky white. "Lucian," the Ancient One rasped. "You dare bring the Mark child here? After killing 6 generals?" "I bring him under the summit truce," Lucian replied formally. "And I invoke the right of trial for his guardian." "The woman?" Another council member laughed. "She's barely more than human. She's more than you'll ever be," Lucian said coldly. "And she'll prove it." The ancient vampire studied Mara with those blind eyes. "Very well. Let the trials begin." Mara squeezed Theo's hand one last time, then stepped forward into the cathedral center. Whatever came next, she would face it. For her son, for the bond they shared, for the life she'd fight to give him. The trials would determine if they lived or died. But they'd already won the only battle that truly mattered. They'd stayed together. And as the ancient vampire raised his hand to begin, as champions stepped from the shadows and weapons gleamed in candlelight, Mara felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. The cathedral doors slammed shut behind them. There was no turning back now. Only forward, into whatever future they would forge together. Mother and son, human and marked, bound by blood and love against a world that wanted them dead. Theo's eyes began to glow, soft silver light reflecting off the ancient stones. The mark pulsed on both their shoulders, synchronized perfectly. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. But this time, they wouldn't face it alone. The end.